welcome to the Trumped Up Podcast. I am your host, Keith Rao, and this is episode 7, the Democrat delusions, because they're totally losing it all over the place, and yesterday was a good example of this. But before we get into that, we're going to start off here with Ilan Omar's alleged marriage to her brother and possible immigration fraud. The alleged marriage to your brother is a misdemeanor, I believe, from what I've been reading. And if you do this, it comes with a pretty high fine and possibly very little jail time. But the immigration fraud factor is a felony, and it can lead up to 25 years in prison. And it comes with a large major fine. You can be deported for this as well, because immigration fraud would renounce your citizenship for sure. Well, as far as I know. I'm not totally sure on that, but let's hope so. But, yeah, reporters are out there reporting on the story. Even liberal newspapers in her own hometown are digging into this now. She has no comment on it ever, and you wouldn't either if you were her. But then she was also out saying this crazy crap about all white men should be profiled because they kill more people than anyone else, but there's no evidence of this. And she would totally say it's racist. Pardon me. She would totally say it's racist if you said that about Muslims or black people or women or people that have abortions. But no, it's totally okay for her to say it about white men. Now we're going to move on to Bernie's blunders. Bernie was calling for $15 an hour minimum wage in his campaign. And most of us know that won't work. Nationalized minimum wage increases tend to backfire. And then one or several of Bernie's campaign staff actually went to the media and pointed out that they're working long hours, and what they're making doesn't equal out to $15 an hour. So then, after this gets out, he agrees to pay them $15 an hour minimum wage, but he proved the Republicans and independents and people that are familiar with economics point that if you do this, you end up cutting people's hours and people are going to lose their jobs, which is exactly what's happening because he raised their wages to $15 an hour. So Bernie inadvertently proved that his campaign promise and several other Democrats' campaign promise is total bogus because it costs jobs and it costs people to lose hours. And likely somebody might want to go check to see if he's going to replace these people with illegal immigrants, because you just never know. It's just pretty much insane out there. But now let's get into that train wreck that I sat through yesterday. 2 hearings. Oh my God, 6 hours of my day. Pretty much, I won't say wasted, because I did learn a couple key things. The Democrats thought this was going to go great for them. They went out and threw practice hearings in hopes that they could gain a soundbite, which they probably did in the very beginning with the whole Trump wasn't exonerated by Robert Mueller, but we'll get into that after. So, Robert Mueller comes to Congress to testify. Pardon me again. And you could tell right away, straight from the beginning, that every question the Democrats were going to ask was building a case for obstruction of justice so they could bring a case against the president of obstruction of justice as a high crime and misdemeanor, and we can impeach him. But as the day went on, this totally backfired, although they still don't understand that it backfired. And then this whole hearing backfired. It was just a total train wreck, shit show, whatever you want to call it. I mean, you probably would have been more excited watching paint dry, because, trust me, watching paint dry is more exciting than Robert Mueller's testimony. Or pretty much anything Democrats do, except the insanity they come up with is pretty interesting to watch. It's comical, at least. You can get a good laugh. So they keep going through this hearing, and it came to fruition the more the day went on that Robert Mueller, one, was wasting a lot of time. He kept saying, "Can you repeat the question? I couldn't hear you. What was your question? What page was that on?" It was totally planned in advance. The Democrats probably told him to do this, especially when every Republican asked a question. I noticed Nadler, every time a Republican was asking questions and they were getting good sound bites, or they were getting a point of the bias of the investigation, he would wrap up their time. But I think all day long they've only did this to the Democrats once or twice. So they're asking Mueller questions, and a lot of times he was saying it wasn't in his purview, which wasn't in the scope of his investigation. For people who don't understand what that means, it wasn't what they were investigating, or other people are investigating this. It's an open matter. I can't talk about it. But we all know that's bullcrap. And as the day goes on and they asked him more questions and he really didn't have the answers to a lot of these questions, or they keep referring, "I refer you back to the report, I refer you back to the report, I refer you back to the report." It's become quite clear to not only me, but to a lot of Americans, a lot of the media, that one, he's getting up there in age and this may have affected it, but I think a lot of that was an act, not just his age. And two, the most key factor of this is he didn't write this report. I mean, he even admitted himself that he didn't do very many of the interviews during this investigation. And from his answers, it appears that he probably didn't even read the damn report before he came here. That's why he had to bring a tag-along assistant who didn't speak once all day. He tried to get him to speak one day to a question, but he didn't. My guess is this report was written by one Andrew Wiseman. And the Republicans got him on all the leaks that came out, which he tried to say that we kept this very close to us and there was no leaks, but there was some leaks, at least 25 from what I got out of the hearing. And everyone was negative to the president, but anything that was exculpatory was either left out of the report or it wasn't in the leaks, which this has been going on since the 2015 campaign with all the leaks, that every time they come out, they're negative to the president. I mean, the guy that started the whole thing, this Joseph Missup guy, apparently they didn't charge him with anything. My guess is when he says we don't talk about charging decisions, which we all know, one, this report is a charging decision. So it's a public report on a charging decision that you decided not to make this charging decision. And then they asked him if he interviewed the guy or why he wasn't charged, or anybody that was with the false information of the Steele dossier or any of this, and he came up with this plan of, we don't talk about charging decision, which we all know James Comey came out and gave a press conference about charging decisions. So I guess this goes to when it benefits you, yeah, we don't talk about it, but when it doesn't benefit us, we'll go out and talk about what our charging decision was. But Volume 1 pretty much says we couldn't find enough evidence to charge Donald Trump with obstruction of justice or collusion, aka conspiracy to work with the Russians in their efforts to hack into the DNC and to post ads on Facebook and whatever other stupid crap they did that sure as hell didn't change my vote, because the day Donald Trump came down the elevator is the day I decided I'm voting for that guy. There was nothing any of these standard lifelong politicians were going to say to change my mind. I knew, hey, I needed an outsider, a businessman, and somebody who was going to do things differently and shake up Washington. And, well, he sure as hell did that. He does that every day. It's hilarious to watch. Democrats don't know how to handle it. But in Volume 2, which stated press reports like 60 times. So basically, in this second volume of the Mueller report, which is in name only because it's probably the Wiseman report or the Democrat biased investigator report said we didn't exonerate the president. We didn't charge him, but we also didn't exonerate him. Well, the reality of that is, no, you didn't, and no, you can't, and no prosecutor in history can do this. I don't even believe a judge can exonerate you. Nobody can exonerate you. If you're in a court in front of a jury of your peers, what you'll get is you're either guilty or not guilty. Being not guilty doesn't say you're innocent. It just says we couldn't convict you of this crime, whether you're innocent or there's not enough evidence. If you believe in God, well, God can exonerate you for everything, or whatever you believe in that aspect, or even if you don't, I mean, you can't exonerate yourself from something. You can fight to prove your innocence, but the public can't exonerate you. But they sure can crucify you, as we've seen over the last couple of years. But we're going to take a quick break here because I got to get my thoughts together, and here's a quick message from our sponsor. Hey, you too can join the podcasting world and be one of the greatest podcasters out there. Build an audience, get sponsorships, earn money, and do many, many interesting things. You can also get listener support to help sponsor your show, all by using Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to become a podcaster. Anyone can do it. If you got something to say, or someone thinks you got something to say, or you just want to say something, come and join Anchor and join the podcasting revolution. Okay, welcome back to the Trumped Up Podcast, episode 7, the Democrat delusions. So as the day went on, I mean, the media totally just was, for once they were reporting real news. Mueller was off his game. This didn't benefit the Democrats. This was a loser for them. But oddly enough, still around 6 p.m. on Pelosi, Nadler, Adam Schiff, I forget what the other guy's name was, but they come out with this press conference talking about obstruction. So you could tell they already had that plan before these hearings this morning, and they were just going to keep going with the same game plan that they had in the first place, because then Nancy Pelosi came up with we're indicting the president based on this obstruction, and they're just trying to lay out this whole case for impeachment, which I don't know why Nancy Pelosi would be on board with this, because she's kind of supposedly against this, but I don't think she's running the party anymore, despite being the Speaker of the House. I mean, you got the squad going one way, and then you got the impeachment crowd going another way, and then you got people like her, like they were doing a press conference earlier today to talk about all the great things they've done since the 100 or 200 days they've been in office, whatever it was, the number, I'm not sure. But if you got to go out and tell everybody what you've done, you pretty much haven't been doing anything, because people would know what you've been doing already. But they hold this press conference, which just reiterated to me that, yes, this was their plan, that all our questions were about obstruction. We're trying to build a case against the president so we can impeach him and get rid of him. You know, one, the media is going to totally turn on these people if things keep going as badly as the hearings with Mueller yesterday went. But because the media doesn't like when you don't do what they want, or you don't make it the way they want, or make the president look bad. And I'm pretty sure if Donald Trump wins re-election, before I get into that, there were some questions about statute of limitations, which is hilarious, because if Donald Trump actually wins re-election and this goes on, it's totally going to be a even bigger waste of time that's already been. I mean, they're going to issue subpoenas to everybody and their mother in the Trump family, or who's affiliated with the Trump campaign, or hell, they might subpoena all of America at this point. Who knows? But So they're just going to keep going on with this. But if Donald Trump wins re-election, there's actually a statute of limitations on obstruction of justice or whatever they're trying to get him on. So he'll actually be in office longer than they could ever get him. But I'm assuming if the Democrats lose again with all this division and chaos they're creating in their party, that the media will really flip the script at that point. They're not going to give Trump props no matter what, but they're totally going to go negative onto the Democrats and totally make them look bad every day because they didn't stop Donald Trump. That's the whole point of the Democrats and the media and the social. Stop Donald Trump. I mean, some of the vile comments I read about, they posted a baby picture of Trump I seen earlier. And oh my God, the vile comments under it were disgusting. I don't know how this isn't considered hate speech, or Facebook doesn't ban people for saying these things, or at least start putting them in jail. But if you see these vile comments, you probably should start reporting them as hate speech, because then at least Facebook will be overwhelmed with people like us pointing out that this is wrong, this is disgusting, and it should stop. So now we're going to get into the controversies of the week, I'll call them. I'm going to start off with the fake racism claims that have been going on between the squad calling Pelosi and Trump racist, but as we know, Ilan Omar has been out there making her own racist comments. But then we got the Georgia lawmaker out there, and she's freaking in a grocery store with too many items, and the guy had a problem with this because it's the express lane, and you shouldn't have too many items in the express lane. I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's one over. Rules are rules, and rules exist for a reason. If you have 11 items, go to the next line. But he didn't yell at her because he was racist. He's actually a Democrat and actually anti-Trump, hilariously enough. But she tried to call him out for being racist, and this whole story's blown up in her face. And if anything, she probably should resign from whatever position she has in Georgia. But this is what the Democrats are constantly doing. They're drumming up fake charges of racism. But now, me personally, I'm a white person. And if somebody called me a cracker or a honky, one, I'm not going to be offended by this, but it's still racism. But this is acceptable racism in America, where if you say something against somebody who's white or call them a cracker or a honky, or a white person has long hair and you're calling them Ozzy Osbourne, you know, I'd be offended if you called me Ozzy Osbourne because he's not all there sometimes. Although I love his music, you can just tell he went off the rails of the crazy train a long time ago. But yeah, racism is acceptable in instances like that, or if it's against white people, like when Ilan Omar said all white men should be targeted because they kill more people, which there's no evidence of this. This is not fact. Look up crime statistics. You'll see that's not true. Not at all. Not even in the slightest. But it's such manufactured outrage. This would be like, say I'm driving down the road and an Asian person comes out and cuts me off or clips my car, and then we pull over and I yell at him and tell him, "What the hell, open your eyes." The Asian person may take me out of context and think I'm saying something about their eyes and racist in that sense, when I'm simply trying to say to them is, you should watch where the hell you're going because you ran into me or you cut me off, and it had nothing to do with their race, but that's the way media and social media works. And then this outrage grows and the Twitter posse comes after you and all this craziness, and it is what it is, I guess. But I mean, we could make up all the fake outrage. I could go online and say, people were like calling me a cracker and they said I'm a stupid white guy and I should be like compensated or something, and people would laugh at me. Really, they would. I don't know why it's acceptable for people to say these things unless you're in a minority class. Now that takes me to another point. If I was in one of these classes, if I was an African American or Hispanic or an Asian or a Native American, if you were calling me a minority, I would be more offended by that. Plus, there's pretty close number. The numbers are growing closer and closer every year. But yeah, I would be offended by you calling me a minority, like I'm less than, or I'm not as much of. It's just, yeah. Which takes me to, I believe that affirmative action should be eliminated. This is pretty controversial to some people, but I don't think so. When the law was created, it was actually created for a reason, and it was in a time where it actually needed to be a law because people were being treated differently. But in this day and age, everybody is equal, and everybody has the same ability to get a job, no matter your race, your religion, your skin color, any of these factors. People aren't going to hire people less because of their skin color. They're going to hire you based on your skills, your education, and things that would benefit their company, or because of your work history or other factors which are used in hiring decisions in human resources. Yes, there may be some instances of this, but it's very rare nowadays, is my guess. So the law actually is now, in this day and age, doing the very opposite of what it was intended to do. It was to guarantee that certain groups of people wouldn't be discriminated against, but it actually discriminates against white men because they're not guaranteed anything, and they are last in line because the government says you have to hire a certain amount of these people, this race, and this certain amount of women, and a certain amount of whatever. And it's just, I think it's time that this law has outlived its usefulness and it should be ended. But who knows on that? And now we're going to get into New York City, where you had these clowns, even a gang member. They were dumping buckets of water on the police officers that are sworn to protect the city that these same clowns live in, but apparently they don't believe in law and order. That was apparent by their actions. And the police just accepted it. They didn't react to it. They didn't like pull out a gun and shoot somebody or tase somebody or use force against anybody. But then they put up pictures. They caught 3 of these guys, but in another incident of this, there's 3 more suspects they're looking for. And after arresting one was actually a known gang member. Which it's good that they're getting these people, but the sad reality of that is we have activist judges who are probably just going to let them the hell back out, and there's going to be no consequence for their actions, and they're going to be free to go harass the police again. But these are the same people that are going to cry when something's going on in their neighborhood and they need help and the police don't show up. But when things like this happen, this is the very reason police stop showing up in neighborhoods, which is bad for people who are trying to live a safe life and to go on with their day and not dodge gunshots like they are in Chicago and other places in America. Granted, New York's crime rate is down, but the fact of that is, well, if you stop enforcing crime, of course crime rates are down. So the Democrats kind of doctored that statistic up. It's just totally ridiculous. It needs to stop. I mean, we need to live in a world of law and order. But the Democrats, like, I guess they don't believe in law and order. They just want it to be the wild, wild west all over America now. I mean, let everybody come across the border free. Who cares who they are? Murderers and other people, gang members. Yes, lots of good people that just want a better life, but that's not the way it's supposed to work. Fortunately, Trump won on the asylum rule that he just won in court, so he can make these people have to apply from a not third world country, a third party country. Sorry about that. Don't hunt me down for that. It was a whole misspeaking, but granted, some of them are third world countries, but that's besides the point. Pardon me again. But I think I'm about out of wind for today. I could probably go get more fired up and come out with about 1,000 more things to talk about. Next week's episode, I'm going to get into things I think the president should be doing more of and where he could improve, and policies that could better benefit America, because I'm not 100% the follower of Trump like these people on the internet say no matter what he does, you'll never not support him. No, there's things he could do that would totally piss me off or go against my views in life, but I got to get the truth out there, and I would like to point out some things that I think he should be doing, but the Democrats would probably just obstruct him regardless, but I'll get into that next week. Remember, you can catch the Trumped Up podcast on a variety of podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, and even more. You can catch us over on Facebook on the Trumped Up Podcast Facebook page. You can also join our group from there, where we can freely discuss pro-Trump things and anti-Democrat things. You can catch us on Twitter. Follow us over there at Trumped Up Podcast. No T at the end because they don't allow you to go that long. Or you can follow us on Instagram at Trumped Up Podcast as well. Thank you for tuning in. Tell your friends. Remember, Anchor is oh yes, you can also catch this podcast on Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. If you want to be a podcaster, go over to Anchor and join the podcasting revolution. Also, I'd love it if you could support our show. There is a link for that. And if you feel to leave us an anonymous voice message, there's also a link on the podcast for that. I'd love to hear your thoughts for once, not just mine. I'm Keith Rao. This is the Trumped Up Podcast, and I am out.